This story is about how a child's dream can overcome any obstacle. At the center of the story is a young heroine whose love for animals and desire for freedom merge with the hope for a better future. Living in a small rented apartment, where even the right to the joy of communicating with her favorite pets is forbidden, she is faced with strict rules imposed by an indifferent owner. In this story, every obstacle becomes a test, and every challenge becomes an opportunity to find the strength to change. Despite the reluctance of adults to go towards her dreams, the young heroine never stops believing that happiness should not be limited by other people's fears and prejudices. This is a story about how the desire to have a loyal friend, a dog named Mani, inspires her to find solutions even in the most difficult circumstances, turning adversity into stepping stones to new horizons and personal growth. I've always wanted a dog, but we lived in a rented apartment, and the landlord forbade keeping animals in the house. Dad tried to talk to him, but it was no use. There are some people you just can't talk to. He claimed that the other tenants were against dogs. That's a load of crap. I knew that the families on the third and fourth floors wanted dogs too. The thing is, the landlord didn't like animals. Of animals. Dad once said, "It's not about the dog." He doesn't like himself and doesn't want others to feel good about themselves. After that, I watched the owner closely for a while. He was indeed unhappy and very angry. When my mother once again talked to him about the dog, the owner threatened to evict us from the house. Even today, I am sure that no one has the right to forbid people to keep dogs. Therefore, it makes sense to buy your own house, if only to keep animals there. After a while, my parents did buy a house with a garden. I had my own room and I was over the moon. But my parents were not so happy, because the purchase was more expensive than expected. I realized that money was tight, so I decided to keep my wishes to myself for a while. But I wanted a dog so badly. One morning, my mother woke me up and said in an excited voice, "Kira, get up quickly. There's a wounded dog lying around the house." I jumped out of bed and rushed to the door. There was a white dog lying in the corner between the house and the garage. He was sound asleep and shuddered in his sleep. On his back was a bleeding wound about 6 centimeters long. It looked as if he had been mauled by other dogs, and then he had come here and fallen asleep, exhausted. I felt sorry for him. How can you bite such a wonderful dog? I thought. Then he woke up and looked at me with his big eyes. Then the dog got up and took a few steps in my direction, but he was so weak and shaking so much that his paws parted and he fell on his belly. I loved him immediately. We carefully carried the dog to the car and took him to the vet. The vet stitched up the wound on his back and gave him a few shots. The dog calmed down and fell asleep. The vet said that the wound was indeed from a bite, but should heal soon. He also informed us that the dog's breed is a Labrador. They are surprisingly good-natured and intelligent animals. They are very fond of children. They make the best guides for the blind. While the doctor was talking, I stroked the dog's white fur. How soft and tender it was. He didn't even feel it when we took him home and laid him gently on the bed in the kitchen. I kept my eyes on him. I can't wait for him to get better, I thought. But I was worried for nothing. The white dog was back on his feet in no time. But there was another serious problem. We didn't know whose he was and where he came from. Did we have the right to keep him? I was really scared. What if my parents didn't want a dog? We didn't have a lot of money. Of course, we had to find his owner, but secretly. I hoped we wouldn't find anyone. Dad put an ad in the paper and called several dog shelters in the area, but no one had heard anything about a white Labrador. Meanwhile, the dog had made a full recovery. His parents liked him more and more every day. The Labrador became a real member of our family. One day, we ran around the yard with him until we were exhausted. Then I sat down to breakfast. The talk at the table was again about money. I preferred not to listen to these conversations. First of all, I did not understand anything. And secondly, when the subject came up, everyone had very unhappy faces. When there was a pause in the conversation, I decided to turn the conversation to a more important topic, and I asked, "What's our dog's name?" And all of a sudden, realized that we didn't know his name. I don't think that was right. A dog should have a name. I looked at the white ball of fur sleeping 3 meters away from me on his bed and thought, but nothing came to mind. Meanwhile, my parents had turned their attention back to financial problems. My father said irritably, "All you hear around you is money, money, money. It's all about money." Suddenly, the Labrador woke up and ran up to Dad. "Money," I exclaimed. "He answers to the name Mani." The dog immediately ran up to me. "He should be called Mani," I urged my parents. "He chose that name for himself." Mom wasn't thrilled with the suggestion. "You can't really name a dog Money." But Dad thought it was funny. "It's not bad. We call money and it comes to us. That's the solution to all problems." At that time, he had no idea how close to the truth his assumption was. That's how it turned out that the Labrador was named Mani. 6 weeks later, we still didn't know where Mani came from. I didn't really want to know. After all, if we found the owner, the dog would probably have to be given away, and I wanted him to stay with us. My parents were also very used to Mani. As a result, the Labrador stayed with us.